Thank you, Laura. Would you introduce our guest speaker, please?
I would be happy to. I would like some of you to re-meet, but for those of you who have not yet met, Reverend Doctor John Leedy. John and I were contemporaries at Austin Seminary, and he served as associate pastor at the church I grew up in for a number of years. He is now serving at Hope Presbyterian in Austin, and he's also the executive director of Kingdom Community, which is what he's here to speak to us about this evening. And he can tell you more about all of that far better than I. So I will turn everything over to John.
Thank you so much, Pastor Laura, and thank you all so much for the invitation to be with you all tonight. I have been looking forward to this meeting from the moment that Laura uh, emailed me about it, and right after I got Laura's email. So, sorry, for those of you who don't know, I my family moved to the Woodlands in 1998, and so I spent my high school years at the Woodlands Community Presbyterian Church. And I dug into my files and I found the bulletin from May 16th, 1999. And this is a Youth Sunday bulletin. And on this back page, um, I am listed as doing the benediction. And this bulletin is so special to me because I can point to an exact moment in time when I first experienced my call to ministry.
Mm.
And so I owe so much of my vocation, my sense of identity, and really just an entire life of life and love of ministry and the church to my experience growing up in the youth group at WCPC. Charles Hendricks, Gene Price, Shannon Kirshner, they were my pastors growing up, and
Yeah.
uh, to have the to have the blessing and honor of carrying on in their footsteps has just been such a joy. So thank you all so much for inviting me back home tonight.
Mm.
Uh, and so with that, I wanted to uh, talk with you all tonight a little bit about what Kingdom Community does. So I am bivocational. So I'm, as Pastor Laura said, part of my time is as the associate pastor of youth ministries at Hope Presbyterian Church, which is in Northwest Austin, and the other part-time is as the executive director of Kingdom Community. Uh, Kingdom Community is as of actually yesterday, is an official 501c3 nonprofit organization that was founded as a part of a new worshiping community of the Presbyterian Church USA out of Grace Presbytery, which is in the DFW region of Texas, kind of north central Texas. And about 4 years ago, Kingdom Community hosted our first ever fully affirming summer camp for LGBTQIA teenagers, ages 12 through 17. And for the past 3 years, we have seen this summer camp grow and flourish into uh, in ways we never thought we would see come into being. This past summer had 69 campers, all aged 12 through 17, all of whom identify somewhere in the LGBTQIA plus community. About 60% of those campers also identify as neurodivergent or are on the autism spectrum. And I always forget this statistic, but the number of our campers who also have a diagnosed case of depression is about 45% of our campers. Um, uh, so Kingdom Camp Kingdom Community was born to be a spiritual home for people who uh, really just couldn't find that sense of community in traditional worship environments for one reason or another. And since its founding, Kingdom has really found its footing, its kind of sense of purpose and call in offering these summer camps for these young people. Um, in many ways, Kingdom camps are like every other traditional summer camp. We do canoeing and archery and arts and crafts and hiking and s'mores around the campfire and silly camp songs. But in other ways, it's a safe and supportive and celebratory place for young people who, uh, for one reason or another, have not been able to find that sense of safety and community in traditional summer camp environments. Uh, a good number of our campers come from Christian denominations, including the Presbyterian Church USA. We also have a number of our campers who are not people of faith. They come from either atheist or just non-practicing households. We also have Jewish campers that are a part of our community as well, and but knowing that a number of our campers come in with sometimes a lot of baggage or religious trauma from the traditions that they grew up in. All of our spiritual programming at camp is opt-in. And so
Mm.
we offer workshops on unclobbering the Bible or on queer theology or how to navigate youth group as a queer student. But our campers will opt into those experiences if they feel like those are right for them. Um, Beyond that, the Kingdom Camp has bloomed into um, a true sense of a Kingdom community, and our campers in between summer camp sessions stay connected through the online social media platform called Discord, and they are able to stay in touch about how things are going at home and school, and they can celebrate victories and joys, and they can commiserate and support each other in hardships and things like that. Um, and one of the ways that we have seen that particularly come to life is in this past month. Um, I don't know if y'all have heard the statistic, but according to the Trevor Project, which is a national suicide prevention hotline specifically geared toward LGBTQIA plus young people, that their call volume in the days following the election results went up by 147%
Mm.
and has thus far shown no signs of tapering off. The Rainbow Youth Project, which is a similar suicide prevention hotline, fielded more calls in the 2 days following the election than they typically do in an entire month. Um, uh, but even beyond the scope of some of the legislative challenges that our campers and their families face, especially here in Texas, um, uh, schools are hard and kids are mean to each other, and
Mm.
uh, our kids, struggle with uh, bullying and kind of all of those kind of layers of navigating the difficult teenage years, challenges that I faced kind of growing up as a kid, but adding this particular layer on top of it, um, really does present a lot of mental health challenges for these kids. And so that's why Kingdom Community takes their mental health care really seriously too. So at our camps, we have a team of licensed professional counselors that are available 24/7 to the young people. We have occupational therapists to help our neurodivergent kids. We have dietary specialists to help with food sensitivities, um, and uh, um, and all of our staff at all of our camps this coming summer will be fully they will be trained in trauma informed caregiving for these kids too. So we try to go out of our way to welcome and to celebrate every part of what these kids come into our camps with. Um, and when they leave, they know that there is a place for them, um, and that looks like them and sounds like them and dresses like them. And that has been such a joy to witness, these kids come back, but also just to come back with these smiles on their faces, knowing that this is a place that they where they belong. So that is Kingdom Camp and Kingdom Community in a nutshell. Um, and I just, wanted to know, do you all have any questions for me about what Kingdom Camp or Kingdom Community is about, or how we do things? Yeah,
Yeah. How long is the camp session?
good question. It's a week-long residential camp that runs Sunday afternoon through Friday, midday Friday. When campers are, or before parents come and pick up their campers, we have our licensed professional therapists on hand to specifically meet with the parents to say, okay, here's the kind of week your kid has just experienced, and here's how you can kind of support them as they transition back into normal life. And we also have resources for our camper families throughout the year. But the typical camp session is a week long kind of sleepaway camp.
How are they scholarships, or do they pay, or how does it go?
Thank you. Yeah, so we have a tiered pricing model. So the true cost to send one Kingdom camper to camp is $1,050. By comparison, Camp Brave Trails, which is the largest and oldest queer youth camping organization in the country, a week of summer camp for them is $2,700. Um, uh, so that said, our families that register for camp have 4 different tiered pricing options. They have the true cost of camp. Then I believe there is a $700, a $500, and a $400 option.
Wow.
Then there is a no questions asked $75 scholarship. And then they can apply for need-based scholarship. And so if there is a kid who wants to come to camp, we are not going to let finances get in the way of that.
Yeah, yeah.
How many
So you,
applicants
The
do you get?
online community
sorry.
is called Discord Online. Why that name versus Kingdom Online?
Oh, I'm sorry. I only my speaker kind of went a little funny. Could you repeat the question for me?
Speak up.
It may have been mine. You mentioned the online community is called Discord Online. Why did you name that versus Kingdom Online?
Okay. So Discord, that's the name of social media platform like Facebook or Instagram. So we didn't name that. So we're using the platform Discord that already existed. But that is a good point. So the name Kingdom is not a typo. We do get that a lot, and Google hates us. We're very difficult to say. Yeah. So the idea behind Kingdom as opposed to kingdom comes from the tradition out of liberation theology, specifically Latina or woman Latina theology from Ada Maria Isasi Diaz, who was a Cuban theologian in the 60s. And she worked to take this idea of kingdom, an idea that had been that she and those she worked with believed had become very polluted over time and far from the original kind of ideal that Christ had come to bring to earth. And so they coined, Ada Maria coined this phrase kingdom as a way of defining our relationship with Christ and others in terms of kinship, of kindred, of family, of of more of a familial relation to each other than one defined by a hierarchy of power. And so that's where kind of the inspiration of the word kingdom came from. Um,
No,
sorry,
no,
very long
I
answer
know.
to.
No, no, I appreciate the word kin coming from the South. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yep. My wife's family has this sprawling extended family, one that I still have not fully mapped that tree out. And so when I was first came into the family about 18 years ago now, I would ask, so who is that? What's the relation with that guy? And the answer I would always get is like, she's kin, honey.
They're just
So
kin. No, no, thank you. Thank you very much.
So with 3 separate operations, and you said that you have specialists, nutritionists and psychologists, are they planted into those 3 spaces? Do you have a central organization that handles it by email and voicemail and all that, or what?
great question. So Kingdom Community is run by 4 part-time staff people, and we are all located here in Texas. And our kind of flagship camps, we do all of the staffing for. So we hire folks that we have interviewed, that we have vetted. But with our 2 partner locations, what we wanted to avoid was just picking up everything we were doing in Texas and transplanting it into a different area. So what we wanted to do was use professionals and resources that were local to those communities in the hope that kingdom communities would grow up around these different partner sites. So we hire uh, licensed professional therapists and occupational therapists who are licensed to practice in the states where these camps operate, and who have a better understanding of kind of the culture that these young people live their lives in.
Yeah.
But we the central kind of staff works very closely with these partner organizations throughout the year to hire, to train. We make site visits before we take on a new partner site just to make sure their facilities are able to meet the needs of this particular population. So we are deeply involved with our partner sites as well. But we do coordinate, all of this over email and Zoom and all of the above.
Mhm. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So how did families hear about this?
That is a great question. So recruiting campers for Kingdom camps is very difficult because we have to be so careful about how we put this out there on social media, online. Every year that when we make a site visit to a new partner site, or when we were beginning our first camp in Texas, we actually work with local law enforcement and the regional FBI office, and they specifically monitor online chatter in areas that our camps exist in. We have invisible security at each one of our camps where the campers will never see our security measures in place, but they are robust and redundant. So we do take our camper safety very seriously. You will never see a front-facing picture of a Kingdom camper under the age of 18 anywhere you look. In fact, our camp photo is all of our campers turned away from the camera, so you just see their backs. So the way that families find out about our camp is largely through word of mouth, through faith communities who may have queer young people as a part of their youth group, who we've had a number of families come to us and say, yeah, our pastor said, hey, have you heard of Kingdom Camp? We work a lot with other local queer nonprofits like PFLAG or school networks, GSAs, groups that are kind of trusted, safe communities for queer young people and families. So they do a lot of our advertising and publicity alongside of us. But we are on Facebook. We do put information out there, but we do target very carefully how we get that information out there. But that is a great question, and one that's kind of a constant challenge.
Because my son is a teacher. He's in the Fort Worth area, but and he's gay, so he recognizes the kids that, you know, have trouble. And I just wondered if he, you know, saw a child that, you know, might benefit from this, you know, who he would contact.
Yeah, and that's honestly a big way of that faith communities and teachers and anyone who really is interacting with young people and families on a regular basis can help support Kingdom, is just by saying exactly what you said, is like, hey, you might benefit from this, you know, check this out. Helping us get the word out is, you know, is something that takes a lot of hands to make happen.
How many, do you just have the one week session each summer, or do you have several?
So each of those camp sessions is 1 week long. We are trying to very carefully scale up our operations as our funding and resources allow us to do. So we have a vision of being able to expand into other states where our a ministry like this would really be needed. So states like Arkansas, Mississippi, Florida, you know, maybe not the easiest states to find a kind of a foothold into, but those are the states where this mission is critical.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can campers come from those states to the various, can they come?
Yes. So we actually this summer have had campers fly in from out of state to attend these camps. We have yet to have an international camper, but we have had, and actually one of our campers loves this camp so much that they came to all 3 Kingdom summer camps this past summer. So I told them if they do that again next year, we're gonna have to get them like a T-shirt or like a free burrito. Got a little punch card.
John,
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions. One is, there is an independently owned bookstore here in the Woodlands that the owner sort of made a back room of the bookstore a safe place for any kids that see themselves as different from everyone. And there have also been fundraisers and book drives to put banned books in that place, and it's a safe place for those. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, she needs to know about this. So if I were to go tell her about it, and maybe she does know about it, would I advise her? exactly what should I tell her? Just to look at your, go online and find you? I mean, I see you on Facebook. So, but I'm not sure I've even looked at your website. I guess I have, but I just kind of absorb everything y'all put on Facebook. So and I have one other question too when you're through with that.
Sure. So, and we actually answer this question a lot: is how do we learn more about Kingdom? The best place to go is our website.
Yeah,
So we
okay.
have a camp tab on there that explains, that goes into as much detail as possible
Okay.
about what the summer camp experience is like, who we are as an organization.
Okay. Advisor to do that.
The other thing that we have on our website is we have a podcast series called Kingdom Campfire Chats that are it is the voices of our campers, all anonymous, but they talk about their life experiences both at home, at school, at camp. And so if someone was interested in Kingdom but really kind of had some trust issues just accepting a website, we direct people to listen to some of those campers' testimonies on the podcasts because those are their stories in their voices.
That could be really powerful. My other question and it's not about Kingdom, but the word queer has gone through I mean, in my lifetime, such a big evolution.
Yeah.
And was a word that, no, but that was a terrible word. You would never say somebody was queer or whatever. And it's really my experience, and I'm very sheltered, I know, but it's only in the last, I don't know, several years that I hear queer used in a non-derogatory way. And I wonder if you could help me understand how that's happened.
Absolutely. So that is something that we do also get that question a lot. So the word queer in, like you said, the last several years has been a word that has been reclaimed by the LGBTQIA plus community as a blanket way of saying the LGBTQIA plus community. And so it's kind of it is an umbrella term that can quickly communicate kind of identification within that community without having to go through the whole alphabet soup.
Right.
There are some young people who specifically identify as queer. So that's the Q in the LGBTQIA plus.
Right.
However, we do have we do every once in a while encounter people within the queer community who did grow up during a time when that word was weaponized against them. One of the important things to us at Kingdom is showing and reinforcing to our campers that it is possible for them to grow up. And so our camp leadership is intergenerational. So we intentionally bring in who we lovingly call our elder gays, but people who lived through the AIDS crisis and people who, one of our, there is a 69-year-old Presbyterian pastor who is openly gay, who lost a partner in the AIDS epidemic, who was at Stonewall and saw the first pride flag being raised. And he every year tells his story to our campers because it's important for them to know their history. But he talks about that, and he talks about how he still feels his, the hair on his arms go up when he hears that word. But he's also so encouraged to see young people reclaiming that word and in so doing kind of removing the power of harm from it.
Interesting. Thank you.
It is really sometimes a challenge, even for folks within the queer community or the LGBTQIA plus community, to keep up with the letters and and the constant evolution of every summer we have to buy new pride flags that have come out, and we learn as much from our campers as they could ever learn from us. And so we talk about how none of us are experts because this is a living thing, and we're learning as we go. Oh, and by the way, I also saw Amanda's name in this Youth Sunday bulletin.
I want to try to find that bulletin at church in the archives or whatever, and see and see if I can recognize that service and what happened in that service. That's not the one where the big cross was laying out.
I
Okay.
don't think so. Yeah.
Okay. I'll look it up and see what I can figure out, or I'll ask Amanda, see what she remembers of it.
I also found this lovely, embarrassing photo of myself and Shannon.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember. I think I remember that you said that Shannon, or somebody told me that Shannon was the one that first said something to you about, did you ever think about going in? And that's when I thought, oh my gosh, that guy is so crazy. He's kind of off the wall.
Yeah, I surprised a lot of people by going into ministry.
Well, there's something that I remember that you said, and I don't want to take too much time. This isn't my meeting, but it was you were doing a devotional at a women's, not just a women's lunch, but it was for it was for educators, Christian educators, of lay people also. And you came in, the event was at St. Philip's in Houston, and you came in and you said something that I have never forgotten, and I keep telling the youth in Sunday school what you said, and that was, you said, it's always been, and this is why I'm telling it, because I want these other people to hear. I think it's very profound that the way we usually look at people, whether they're youth or adults or whatever, when they first come, is, well, what do you believe? This is what we're about, and this is what we believe. And then the next thing is, well, how do you act that out? How do you live? And then the last thing is, oh, you're welcome here. You belong.
Yeah.
You said that's exactly backwards, that the first thing should always be, you belong no matter what. And then we kind of talk about, well, how we live. And then you said, and the last thing about believing is not our job anyway, because that's Holy Spirit's work. And that's about all I remember from that day. I just thought that was so profound and important. So thank you again for that. If I never said thank you before, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah,
It's really important.
So the mission of Kingdom Community is to create space for queer belonging and celebration. And
That's
so
right.
that sense of belonging, I mean, one of the things that I'm more and more convinced about is Kingdom Camp is not about camp. It is about suicide prevention. It is about saving lives. It is about showing these kids that there is a place they are loved, and that they belong, and that they are celebrated. And that yeah, so thank you. Yeah, and that really is
That's life-saving work.
John, in my learning curve, you have he/him. Can you explain that a little more? Because I've seen it elsewhere, but could you explain a little more about that?
Absolutely. So those are the pronouns that I use. And we all use pronouns. And on a lot of the Zoom calls that I am on for work, we have people who, the way that they present visibly on camera may not line up with their gender identity. And so you would get, he, him, she, her. You may have they, them pronouns,
Right.
which, I know sounds tricky with a plural. We think of that as a plural pronoun. But we also use that pronoun when we're talking about a singular person whom we don't know the gender identity of. So it's like, oh, do you know if the male person has come today? I really hope they bring that box. So we actually use that pronoun for a singular person all the time, but our brains are so trained to think about that as a plural pronoun. There are also people who use here, I will actually write this in the chat. There are people who use neopronouns. So these are pronouns that we typically don't see in the she, him, they. So pronouns like am or this one's always hard for me to pronounce, they, zer, and there are a couple others, but this has become a way for people who identify as either transgender or non-binary to help make sense of who they are inside. As someone who identifies as cisgender, it is hard for me sometimes to understand what that means inside the heart of a transgender or non-binary person, because that's just not a part of my story. But at our Kingdom camps, all of our staff are highly trained to use the pronouns that our campers indicate that they wish to be called, and we don't always get it right. And so the reason that I have my pronouns on my Zoom tag is also to signal other people who I might be on a Zoom call with that I'm a safe person that you can share this with. So yeah, that's pronouns are a big conversation, and they're not easy. So I'm with you on that, and I'm constantly learning new pronouns as well. And yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
John, could you give me the date of that bulletin? I'll just write it in the notes in case anybody did want to see it. I know you said 99, I think.
May 16th, 1999.
Got it.
And John, one question. We often put recordings of our guest speakers on our website. You mentioned that we keep the locations of Kingdom camps offline intentionally. Were we to extract that from our video, edit that out, would it be okay for us to post the rest of our conversation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We have a good representation of our congregation here, but there are others in the WCPC community, I think, especially with your ties to us, who would like to know more about Kingdom. We can direct them to the website, obviously, but I think there's been so much more that's come out of our conversation tonight that would be helpful for folks to get to know who Kingdom is and what y'all do.
Let me provide one other resource, and I will put this in the chat.
Okay.
Let's see. It can be hard to hear all of this and to kind of really absorb kind of what this looks like. Mm-hmm. And so we have come up with a day in the life slideshow of it goes through kind of a typical day at a Kingdom camp, but it is also attached pictures to each of those days. So I put the link to that folder in the chat. And when you open that, you'll see a number of different kind of individual pictures, but you'll also see a slideshow at the very kind of top of that folder. So y'all are welcome to take a look at that as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Or we might post that in the
On our bulletin board.
yeah.
Y'all are absolutely welcome to share that. That whole slideshow is approved for public distribution.
Good to know. Besides letting folk know about Kingdom, what can we as I think I mentioned in the email I sent you initially that we may not be able to financially support this year, but what are other ways that we can support this ministry? Because I think it's something that we all said was important for us to support.
Absolutely. And thank you all so much for your interest and willingness to support this work. I am actually going to put another link in the chat because this is also a question that we do get. So this link is to Kingdom volunteer opportunities. We have opportunities for individuals and small groups. So one of the things that we like to do is something that most traditional summer camps do, is to do camper mail. But not all of our campers have people who will write them cards or letters at camp. And so one of the ways that faith communities can help is by writing cards that we can deliver to campers during the week of camp. And if we have more than we can use, we will mail to campers just throughout the year little notes of encouragement, of love and support. Those really do go a long way. And so in that document, there are some guidelines for how we suggest writing those notes. We do re-envelope any notes that we get just to protect your identity, your mailing address, things like that. And just because we do ask lots of people to help with this, we also just do screen the notes just to make sure they're okay. We have a program called Kingdom Closet where we, for young people who are trans or non-binary, they may not be able to afford or have access to clothing that fits kind of with their gender expression. And so we are starting this year to provide a Kingdom Closet so young people can come home from camp with some clothes that feel more like them. One of the things that we also offer at camp is we bring in professional hairstylists from the Dress Code Project who offer gender affirming haircuts to some of our campers with parental consent. But those are always a cool moment. Other opportunities, helping to get the word out about Kingdom. So if there are any local organizations, GSAs, independent bookstores that that might have folks that would be interested or might benefit from a camp like this, I am happy to mail you in your church a box that has nice postcards, business cards, stickers, all of that. I'm happy to mail a box like that to y'all, where you all can put those up in your community, coffee shops, stuff like that.
In the bookstore.
In the bookstore, yeah. I am also happy to hop on a Zoom call with myself or our camp program director, Andy Hackett. We are happy to hop on a Zoom call with parents who are interested but may want to just meet the people who they'll be sending their kid to. I'm happy to hop on a Zoom call with other kind of local LGBTQ nonprofits if they need to kind of vet us out or meet some of us. one of the things that we do at when we visit Pride events is the thing that we give away are little friendship bracelet making kits, and the friendship bracelet thread is in all the different Pride colors, Pride flag colors, and so those kits do take us a long time to make. And so if that would be something, if there's a crafting group or a needlework group in the church, we've had churches that have begun to build those kits for us and mail them back. And so in that document, there are a lot of different ways to help. One of the things that we are aware of is the length of time it takes to drive from Houston, the Woodlands, to our camp location in East Texas. And one of the things that, as the number of our campers who are coming from the Houston area increases, one of the things we're looking at is the what would it look like to provide a chartered van or a kind of a carpool type something, just to be able to make our campers' families' lives just a little bit easier. And so if there are young people that are interested from the Woodlands or the Houston area, that is absolutely something that we're willing to talk about, is how to make that drive to camp up there a little easier. And you are also welcome to share that Kingdom volunteer opportunities wherever.
Yeah, thank you so much. Gary, do we have any other questions for John? We want to be respectful of your time. We're grateful for your presence with us.
It doesn't, was there something coming up?
No, I was just asking if we
get an opportunity.
got any other.
I thought I heard somebody say something. I guess not. Well, John, thank you very much. We really appreciate the time and effort here.
Thank you for your work.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for having me tonight. I am happy to be a resource going forward. Should you all have young people in your youth group or your church community that, that if folks from your church are looking on guidance on kind of how to minister to the LGBTQ community, or really just whatever, I'm happy to teach Sunday school classes. I'm happy to help out however I can. So thank you, and for inviting me back to my home church for the night. It was a joy. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. And again, if there's anything that I can do to support you all and to be church with you all, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it.